We are in our series on the seasons of life, and we've talked about understanding the times and the seasons, why that's important. We've talked about the winter season, the spring season, and in this message, I want to focus on the season of summer, which is the season of faith and of action. The summer season is one that we live in most likely the most within the changing of the seasons of our life. Why? Because summer is the time that we have to keep going, that we apply action, that we don't stop, we continue. It might be hot, it might be tiresome, or we might feel energized. Whatever's going on for us, though, the summer is the season of action, whether we feel like it or we don't. So I want to encourage you that if you're in a summer season in an area of your life, that this message and this topic is going to help you see it in a better and broader perspective. So as I said previously, the spring season is the time of hope and a vision. That's always exciting, right? When we have the vision or the idea or what we want to see happen in the future, normally we get a lot of excitement about that. In fact, it should be exciting because that gives us like the juice and the energy to move forward. So in the spring or the time of hope, the time of vision is when what we're seeing that we want to have reaping in our life in the fall season. It's the harvest that we want. It's the promise we want to see manifest, and we have a hope of it. But between sowing and reaping, there's time. And that is the growing time. So I sow, that's my hope of the coming reaping that I will have in the future harvest. But between sowing and reaping, there is always the growing, where we grow inside of us. The plant grows, the ministry grows, the business grows. We have to keep applying the action. This is the summer season. Okay, so hope is the territory where our faith operates. So without a vision, without a hope of what's to come, we have nothing to apply faith to. This is why spring is so important, because it's the vision of what we want. But a vision doesn't come to pass just because we have a vision. It comes to pass because we apply action and we apply faith. I have another message that's synergistic to this, and it's called Plateauers, Dreamers, and Achievers. And I encourage you to watch that one as well, because it ties in with what we're talking about the summer season. So faith is the time of action. Summer is the time of action because it's the time of faith. All right, in Hebrews 11:1, I want to give you some scriptures that's going to help you understand and be dressed, so to speak, for the season of summer. You can be better prepared. Right? When we understand what's going on, then we feel better about it. We understand when we're just not feeling like, we want to do this, but we then know, well, I don't feel like it, but this is the time I need to be faithful and I just need to continue, or whatever might be happening for you in the summer season. Okay, so in Hebrews 11, verse 1, it says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of the things not yet seen." Again, that shows that there's first hope, and then faith is the substance of it before it comes into the actual manifestation. In Ecclesiastes 5:3 is another great scripture. It says this, I love this. It says, "For a dream comes through much activity." Ecclesiastes 5:3. A dream comes through much activity, and a fool's voice is known by his many words. So we don't want to be a person or a people that just talk, but don't do, right? We have to have the vision, we have to have the hope in our heart, but then the next step is the action, the growing, the cultivating of the crop and of ourselves. A dream comes through much activity. James 2:26 says this, says, for as the body without the Spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. Okay? Faith without works is dead. So I'm applying this to the action. It's in the summertime. That's the season that even if it's hot, even if the crop is just small, even if we don't see our promise coming forth as of yet, we continue. Do you know what the biggest test in the summer season is? It's the test of faithfulness. The test of faithfulness. Will you be faithful even when it's boring, or even when it's mundane, or even when it's just the everyday stuff? What do I mean by this? Maybe you had a desire to be in a ministry and you were excited for it, and maybe God's called you into ministry. Or we can apply it to a business. You had this idea for a business, right? And so you start it. You start the business, you start the ministry, you start whatever capacity it is that we're applying this message to. And it's exciting in the beginning, isn't it? But doesn't there always come a stage where you just have to keep on doing, even when you don't feel like it? I know I've gone through stages like this in many areas of my life. It's the faithfulness of the everyday. It's the faithfulness of the action of what are you going to do today, tomorrow, and the next day. We can't just live in the hope. We've got to continue each day. Now, Galatians 6, 7, and 9 says this. It says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Verse 9, let's go on to verse 9. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we don't lose heart. You see, my friends, my brothers, my sisters, it's in the summer season that we can lose heart, right? It's like you've been sowing and you've been planting and you've been cultivating, and maybe even the crop, that was growing. The plants were growing. The promise was growing. Maybe it looked like it was coming close to fruition, and then possibly something happened and you had to start over. Or you've been believing for a promise and it just feels like it's always delayed. Where is it? We can be tempted to lose heart during these times. In fact, sometimes we do lose heart. We've got to pull ourselves back up. We've got to pull up the hope that came to us and the vision that came to us in the springtime. I really want to minister to that and speak to you. If you have a place in your heart or your emotions or your vision, something that's happened in your life and you feel like you've lost heart or you've lost hope in that area, I speak life to you. I speak empowerment to you. I speak grace to you right now. And just know that you are in the summer season, the season of growing. Maybe it's you that's growing on the inside. You were looking for the growth externally, but God's using the season to grow you inside. And when we grow on the inside, when our capacity grows, our abilities grow, our faith grow, that can never be taken from us. You see, external crop or harvest or fruits that come to us, there are things that happen that can wipe it all out. I've had that happen in my life too. That can be taken from us. But you know what can never be taken from us is where we grow on the inside. So we can use every season that we walk through, because the lessons that we learn, the levels that we go to, who we become, that can never be taken from us. Of course, unless we give it away. But no one can steal that. The devil can't even steal that. Nobody has that power, not even the enemy. Why? Because you're a child of God. You've got his DNA, his nature, and he's empowered you. And that is where the great growth is on the inside. You see, it's in the summer season that this is the time of development. I like to equate it to a woman that's pregnant and going to have a baby. She doesn't get pregnant and then have the baby the next day. There's 9 months approximately of development that takes place where the baby is growing on the inside. Why? So that when the baby is birthed, when the baby is here, it can live, it can function in the world. Yes, still with care. Yes, still with a mother's care and a father's care. But it takes the 9 months of development on the inside to then be birthed externally. Now that is true for all of us. Before the external birth of whatever it is that you're believing for, you're working for, the vision, the hope, the promise, there's always internal development that must take place. Otherwise, you're not prepared for the coming harvest. In other words, if you had that harvest right now, it could crush you. It could break you. You wouldn't be equipped for it. So God takes you through the development process so that when he does release the harvest, when the promise comes, when that influence comes, when that finance comes, when that power comes, whatever it might be, you've grown on the inside so you can handle it. It's very synonymous with the children of Israel. And in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, it says this, verse 2. It says, "You shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and to test you." Let me just make a note here that humbling is not so we think low of ourselves. That's not what humble means, because I think low and I won't exert myself. No. You know what humble means? It means to be submitted to God. That's humility. We're prideful when we boast of ourselves and our own will and our own thoughts. But humility is submission to God. It's not thinking low of yourself. It's actually thinking highly of yourself. It's knowing who you are, but you walk humbly before your God, submitted to him, your heart soft to him. That is true humility. Pride takes you outside of that realm. So when we walk through the wilderness, when we walk through the summer, when we walk through winter seasons, normally we are humbled more. Why? We get closer to God. Our heart softens. Now, we shouldn't just wait for the hard seasons for our heart to be soft. Let's just let our heart be soft when, no matter what. Don't be the person that has to hit the bottom of the barrel to finally see the light, right? Like if you get to that place, well, there was a lot of chances before then to have the soft, humble heart. In fact, what's important is let's have humility and softness of heart and tenderness of heart and submission to God in the midst of our prosperity, right? So that we can handle the prosperity, the influence, and the power humbly before our God. Okay, but anyways, back to the scripture. It says that they walked through the wilderness, and it took them the 40 years so that they would be humble, and he tested them to know what was in their heart. That's what testing does. When testing comes into our life, what comes out is what's in our heart, deep in our beliefs. And whether you would keep his commandments or not. Verse 3, "So he humbled you and allowed you to hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Again, this is the definition of humility here. Understanding that yes, we're powerful. Yes, we're children of God. We're worthy. We're lovable. We're acceptable. We're accepted by him. And yet we are dependent upon him, that we don't live just by manna around us, by the world around us. We live by God. We live, it says here, by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. So part of that humility was that they just had daily sustenance. They hadn't come into the harvest yet. They hadn't come into the promised land. So that's why I read this while we're talking about the summer season, because it's similar in the summer season. We're not in the harvest yet. We're not in the promised land yet. We're going to the promised land, but we're not yet living in the fruition of it. The full manifestation is just partial. Yes, our needs are met. Yes, we see something happen. Like this group of people saw manna every day, a miraculous provision. But they knew that they were on the way to something that was sustainable and long-term. And I speak that to you as well. You see, if you're in the summer season in an area of your life, keep going through the summer season until the promised land, the harvest, the autumn season comes in that area. Because in verse 7-9, this is what the scripture goes on to say. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks, of water, of fountains, and of springs that flow out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates. What is this all speaking of? Harvest. Plenty, abundance. A land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity. A land whose stones are iron and out of whose hills you can dig copper. Again, this just speaks of abundance. Now, a principle that I've really been focusing on and the Lord's been cultivating in my heart for approximately the last year is the concept that abundance is not just external, right? It's not just something that we go into and when we have the fig tree and the land flowing with milk and honey and we're in the promised land, then we're in abundance. Abundance actually starts on the inside of us. It starts with our thinking. It starts with our belief. It starts with our viewpoints. And when we have internal abundance, that will eventually then manifest into external abundance. So that's what was happening here with the children of Israel. This is what's happening when we're walking through the seasons of life. And especially in the summer is the transformation, the renewal of our mind, going from one level to the next level, finding those thoughts and those beliefs and those actions that are disempowering us and transforming them into greater truth, into the truth of heaven and into truths that will empower us and give us the grace, how we think, how we believe, how we manage things, how we choose to react, how we choose to respond, our attitudes. All of this is internal abundance that eventually leads into the fruit of external abundance. So, again, an encouragement to you right now. The Lord your God is bringing you into a good land. Now, I also want to say that good land is on the inside of you. It's within you right now. But he's also bringing you into a greater level of abundance. But what's always important too is we always don't want the promise just to be in front of us. Like we don't want to just think, I'll be happy when I get to my promised land. Oh, everything will be good when this happens, when I have this relationship, when I have this type of house, when I have this kind of money in my bank account, when I have this degree, then I'll be happy, right? How often are we trying to pursue happiness because of what we have? Let's not always put that in our future. Let's be happy. Let's be content. Let's live in abundance right now in whatever season that we are in, while at the same time creating more from abundance that's already within us. Otherwise, it's always like the carrot that's in front of us, like the carrot on the stick, and we never can quite reach it. Right? Because if you always think it's in your future, and then when you actually get to that future, normally there's something else in the future. And we're always chasing something in the future, and then I'll be satisfied. Then I'll be content. Then I'll be happy. No, my friend, right now. Embrace it right now. Live in the season that you're in right now. You are in destiny right now. Destiny is not just in your future. So we often think that, I'm pursuing my destiny, my next step, my next level. Okay, that's fine. Do that. But do that from contentment within this level, that you are right now where you are meant to be, what you're supposed to be doing. Embrace that. Live in that. And then if there's changes you need to make, change them, grow from there. But live in that contentment and joy and peace that is within you right now. There is a good land within you, and God is taking you into greater lands. This is especially important to know when you're in the summer season. It's probably one of the tests here, right? Is to know this, live from this, even before the promise manifests. Okay, so during the summer season, it is the time of development. It's the time that you're growing, you're developing. It's the time that the aspects of, whatever we're applying this message to, it is developing and growing. It is the time of process. Process means the daily, the weekly, the monthly action. Here's a phrase that I love. It says, "The secret of our success is found in our daily agenda." So look at your daily agenda. Look at your daily time spent. Is it leading you to, taking you to the goals, the vision, the promised land? This is an assessment we can always be making in our lives. Where am I spending my time? What does my daily agenda look like? Is it the actions that I want to be doing that is taking me to the overall goals that I have in my life? What matters most is what you do day by day over the long haul. In a boxing ring, champions don't become champions in the ring. They are merely recognized there. What does that mean? That means if you go into the boxing ring and you're the champion there, that's not where you became the champion. You know where you became the champion? In all the previous days and weeks and months of practice, of the fight, of the boxing, of the exercise, of doing the daily work. But then there comes a time that you're recognized for it, that you become the champion, but it's all of the pre-work. It's the daily stuff. It's the monthly. It's the weekly that takes you to that place of champion in the ring. Often we overestimate the event and we underestimate the process. The events are great. The recognition is great. But what is the process that got you there? What is the process that you are in right now that is taking you to the fulfillment of the vision and the promise? Okay, in the summer season, stay standing. Stay standing. Don't quit. Don't give up, even if it's hot, even if it's discouraging, even if it's boring, even if it's the mundane, even if it's just the day, I just need to continue. I want to encourage you, don't give up. Stay faithful to what you've committed to. Stay faithful to the vision. Stay faithful to the process that is taking you where you want to go. When you've done all to stand, keep standing, as the scripture says. Okay, embrace your summer season. Know that you're developing, that you're growing, that you're in the process, and eventually the reaping, the harvest, and the promised land will manifest. God bless.